KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific President Tan Sri Michael Yeo, National Association of Private Educational Institutions President Associate Professor Ilasolan Mohan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. I would like to convey my thanks to Tan Sri Michael Yeo and his team from KSI Strategic for extending an invitation to join this year's National Education and Learning Summit alongside an esteemed crowd. I am thankful for conferences such as this, which provides a platform that brings together academicians, policymakers, civil society, and private sector to propose new ideas and discuss constructive ways to improve the Malaysian education system. Education has been and still is the key to unlocking the world. It is a passport to freedom, the most powerful tool for economic and social development, as well as poverty eradication. Traditionally, the prime objective of the education system in most developing countries has been to equip its young people with basic education in preparation to supply the country with enough human resources to sustain development. Strategies for education development were relatively straightforward then. However, radical changes and multifaceted transformation worldwide over the past several decades in the fields of science and technology, economics, politics, and social dynamics has complicated things a little. Globalization, technological advancement and revolution, increasing dependence on cross-border trades, and heightened competition between nations have led some Asian countries to transform its production economy to a knowledge-based economy, where knowledge is key. Hence, catchwords in the field of education and skill-based training have also changed from literacy and human resource, currently focusing on human capital, creativity, productivity-driven, innovation, science and technology, ICT savvy, soft skills, and global mobility, among others. These factors will impact the objectives of the education system and strategies for education development. In the past year, COVID-19 hastened the usage of technology and the internet in almost all industries, including the education sector. The pandemic led to the closure of education institutions across the world in an attempt to flatten the curve and reduce fatalities. That was when technology played a large role in supporting teaching and learning continuity from home during recent lockdowns, and now it continues changing what and how we learn. The nationwide movement control order that was imposed in mid-March last year caused school closures, which affected over 5 million school students, an estimated 1.2 million tertiary students, and 440,000 teachers from over 10,000 schools. Like many other countries in the world, education in Malaysia underwent dramatic changes as a result of the pandemic. The most drastic change was the overnight switch from face-to-face teaching and learning to home-based remote learning. There was a great loss of learning time, which meant students, especially those from the B40 and vulnerable community, were disengaged and faced higher risk of dropping out from school. Ladies and gentlemen, the Education Ministry was aware that educational content must be made available on other platforms to facilitate the learning process. Hence, we implemented home-based learning, which required teachers to use the most suitable remote learning solutions to teach students. As soon as the MCO struck, my ministry re-evaluated our goals, namely access, quality, equity, unity, and efficiency that were anchored by the Malaysian Education Blueprint. These goals were realigned and re-strategized to keep up with the new home-based learning method. MOE also emphasized on the preparedness of teachers and students in online learning and launched initiatives to improve teachers' online teaching skills, through various online continuing professional development courses, including the digital learning community, which was done in collaboration with UNICEF. The home-based learning was facilitated by the Ministry of Education digital learning platform, which emerged as teachers and students' first choice. Teachers, therefore, have been adapting and adopting a blended learning approach, using a combination of instructional learning in addition to leveraging digital content to facilitate learning since last year. Apart from that, digital learning was also facilitated through related learning links, ChikuTube, eGuru Portal, and EduWeb TV, given that 96% of households have access to free television. This was to reach students who had no or limited access to internet coverage. Additionally, dedicated teachers put in tremendous effort to personally deliver worksheets to remote areas and indigenous communities, with the assistance and approval of their district health and education office. Meanwhile, disruptions to the learning process have prompted the ministry to cancel UPSR, PT3, Matriculation College end of semester examination, and rescheduled SPM, STPM, STAM, and SVM. All that was done for the safety of students, which throughout the pandemic has remained the ministry's top priority. When schools reopened last year, we worked closely with the Health Ministry and the National Security Council to ensure schools are provided with proper management guidelines to operate safely and effectively. Several guidelines were prepared for the reopening of schools, which included staggered return of higher secondary school students who had to sit for major exams. Awareness campaigns have been and still being conducted, while engagement sections with various stakeholders has been and is being held as my ministry continue to enhance schooling and learning for our students. The pandemic has made it tough on students, parents, and teachers to embrace and adapt to the constantly evolving learning conditions. But I must say it, they have done well in weathering all the sudden changes that came about. Meanwhile, educators and policymakers, as well as relevant authorities, need to be conscientious and deliberate in reviewing education policies that are aligned with the current situation. The ministry is fully aware of the equity gap in accessing the internet between rural and urban areas, which still remains to be resolved. We are determined to improve the situation for those children and are in the midst of doing so. Indeed, current challenges are undeniably greater than before, and closer coalitions between the various stakeholders, be it government, private sector, and academia, are necessary to make noble initiatives into reality. Learning institutions and facilities nationwide were forced to temporarily cease operations as a protective measure to stop COVID-19 from escalating, creating an unparalleled education interruption. Though unfortunate, this has opened up a number of opportunities and key ideas for boosting education approaches for the education sector, learning institutions, and local authorities, allowing all parties, my ministry included, to formulate better strategies and education policies that can weather future crises. We have witnessed how solidarity and enhanced cooperation can help build a better future during a global health crisis. As the world begins to emerge from this pandemic, we should not forget the lesson learned, but should instead continue moving forward for the better. Thank you, and stay safe.